The night the storm hit, Karen didn't just hear my wind chimes. She heard every secret she'd tried to bury. That's the part people remember. But the truth? The real chaos began long before the sky cracked open. It began with a single letter taped to my front door. An HOA violation notice claiming that my wind chimes caused Karen extreme emotional distress. Yes, wind chimes. The soft, wooden, soothing kind you'd find in a meditation retreat. I laughed when I first read it. I thought it was a joke. But Karen doesn't joke. Karen documents. She measures decibels, records timestamps, and writes emails with the speed of a court stenographer. That night she stood on my property line, arms crossed, lips tight, waiting for me to react. I didn't, and that made her furious. She launched a full assault. Daily noise complaints, photos taken from behind bushes, accusations that my chimes vibrated at psychologically harmful frequencies. She even dragged the HOA president into it, forcing him to listen as she reenacted how the traumatizing tones disrupted her peace. The truth was simple. Karen hated anything she didn't control, and my wind chimes were something she couldn't supervise. While she complained, the neighborhood watched with a mix of pity and amusement. I tried being polite. I tried being firm. Eventually, I tried ignoring her entirely. But when someone's hobby is misery, ignoring them only fuels their passion. By the time the meteorologists warned about the approaching thunderstorm, Karen had already escalated her campaign. She threatened legal action. She threatened mediation. She threatened to take matters into her own hands. And knowing Karen, that meant she was already planning something drastic. The evening before the storm arrived, I caught her standing under my porch light, staring at the chimes like they were plotting against her. She scribbled something in her notebook, took a picture, then stormed off as if I had insulted her ancestors. I didn't know it yet, but that notebook was her downfall. The day of the storm, the wind arrived early. Thick, heavy clouds rolled over the neighborhood like a warning no one could misunderstand. Neighbors pulled in patio furniture. Kids hurried inside. Even the birds retreated. But not Karen. While everyone else prepared, she was too busy organizing her noise evidence into color-coded binders. She had no idea the storm would turn her backyard, not mine, into the loudest, most chaotic symphony the neighborhood had ever heard. And it all began the moment she tried to silence mine. The storm struck faster than anyone predicted. One moment, the air was thick and unmoving. And the next, the wind roared through the neighborhood like it had been waiting for its cue. I watched from my living room window as trees bent. Loose leaves spiraled upward, and patio umbrellas cartwheeled down the street like drunken acrobats. My wind chimes, the cause of Karen's weeks-long crusade, swayed gently. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud. Just soft, peaceful notes carried by the rising breeze. But across the street, that was a different story. Karen's backyard was a chaotic museum of things she insisted brought, balanced to the aesthetic integrity of the neighborhood, a metal pergola. She'd assembled herself despite having zero construction skills. A dozen decorative birdhouses that hung like mismatched ornaments, heavy ceramic pots she vowed she didn't need to anchor, and a collection of metal garden stakes she insisted were essential for spiritual energy flow. Combine all that with 70-mile-per-hour winds, and you get the opening act of the wildest symphony this HOA had ever heard. The first crash came from the pergola, one bolt then another, then a metallic wail as the whole structure collapsed in on itself like a dying robot. The sound was so loud it rattled my windows. Then the birdhouses began, not gently, not musically. They slammed into each other like wooden battering rams, clacking and thudding with every gust. One broke loose entirely and flew across the yard, smashing against her shed in an explosion of splinters. But it wasn't until the flower pots toppled that Karen lost her composure. Her scream cut through the storm, loud enough that even nature paused to judge her. She burst out her back door, hair whipping wildly, robe plastered against her body by the rain. She tried to grab everything at once, slipping, stumbling, shouting accusations at the wind like it worked for me. Her garden stakes, metal and perfectly shaped for chaos, began clanging against each other, in a rhythm so violent it almost sounded intentional. A ringing, clattering manic orchestra. And there, between the thunder, the howling wind, and her collapsing backyard came the irony. Her emotional damage was now being delivered directly by her own decorations, louder than any wind chime on the planet. Neighbors peeked through blinds. Some recorded. One whispered, "Now that's karma with surround sound." The storm didn't just destroy her yard, it made it sing. And Karen had finally realized it wasn't my wind chimes that were the problem. It was the storm she created herself. Karen didn't sleep that night. You could tell by the way her lights stayed on until sunrise, flickering as if even the electricity was exhausted by her rage. When the storm finally calmed, The neighborhood stepped outside to survey the damage, but Karen emerged like a general walking through the aftermath of a battlefield, robe on, clipboard in hand, fury radiating from every pore. She marched straight toward me. I didn't even get a chance to sip my coffee before she launched her attack. "This," she snapped, waving her pen toward her ruined backyard, "is your fault." I blinked. "Karen, the storm—" "Don't gaslight me," she snapped, as if nature itself took orders from my wind chimes. "Your chimes triggered a cascade effect of atmospheric instability. They agitated the air. For a moment, I wondered if she actually believed that. But then she continued talking, and I knew she did. She began writing me up for a secondary noise-induced weather escalation, a term she clearly invented that morning. Neighbors gathered, not to intervene, just to witness whatever reality Karen was constructing this time. Then someone asked the question that finally cracked her facade. "Karen, what about your backyard decor? Couldn't all that metal and wood have made the noise?" Her eyes widened. She had been waiting to blame something, but she had not prepared to blame herself. "No," she said sharply. "My decorations are harmonious. They enhance the environment." Another neighbor stepped forward. "Mine recorded it," he said, holding up his phone. "Your stake sounded like a construction site." And then another joined. "And your pergola started the chain reaction." Someone else added, "And your birdhouses were louder than a drum line." Karen's face turned the color of a malfunctioning traffic light. She opened her mouth to argue, but the truth had already been spoken, and the truth had witnesses. Desperate, she stormed back into her home. Minutes later, she returned with her infamous binder, the one where she kept every complaint, every timestamp, every shaky accusation she had ever made. She slammed it onto my patio table. "This," she hissed, "proves everything." I opened it calmly. Inside were pages and pages of notes, scribbled at odd hours, filled with paranoid descriptions of phantom noises, imagined vibrations, and strange references to the chime conspiracy. But the strangest part? Several pages were dedicated entirely to sketches of my wind chimes, as if she believed they were alive. The neighbors exchanged uncomfortable glances. Karen didn't just hate my chimes, she feared them. And that fear was about to push her into making the biggest mistake of all. Karen's breaking point arrived the next morning. A quiet, sunlit day that should have calmed her storm-battered nerves. Instead, she marched onto my property with a determined stride, holding a screwdriver in one hand and that battered binder in the other. Her mission was clear: remove my wind chimes herself. I stepped outside just as she reached up toward them. "Karen," I said, keeping my voice steady, "this is trespassing." She didn't even flinch. "These chimes are a threat to community stability. I'm neutralizing them." Behind her, a handful of neighbors gathered, phones ready. Everyone had seen enough HOA drama to sense when an episode needed documentation. What none of us expected, however, was what happened next. As Karen tugged on the chimes, she yanked too hard. The hook snapped, not from age, but from her stubborn force, and the chimes swung forward, smacking her binder out of her hands and sending it flying across the porch. Pages scattered everywhere, drifting across the lawn like confetti at a parade no one asked for. Karen shrieked, stumbling backward and landing squarely on her lawn ornaments, crushing 2 ceramic rabbits and a solar lantern beneath her. The neighbors gasped, though most were fighting back laughter. She scrambled to collect the pages, but the wind picked them up, spreading her handwritten notes. Nocturnal humming, frequency distortion, possible chime hypnosis, across the neighborhood. It was chaos. Beautiful, poetic chaos. Then the HOA president arrived. He stepped forward slowly, surveying the mess. Karen on her knees, binder pages fluttering everywhere, her backyard still half destroyed, and the entire neighborhood watching silently. "Karen," he said with tired authority, "we need to talk." She looked up at him with desperate eyes. "He's manipulating the weather. His chimes cause structural instability." He sighed, the kind of sigh reserved for people who finally run out of patience. "No, Karen, the storm caused the storm, and your backyard was a hazard long before last night." And then, unbelievably, he turned to me. "On behalf of the HOA, I'm apologizing. Your wind chimes are completely within guidelines." Karen froze. "And," he added, "we'll be issuing a formal warning to you, Karen, for harassment, trespassing, and unsafe property additions." The neighbors erupted in quiet murmurs, some nodding, some smirking, all relieved the truth had finally caught up to her. Karen stood slowly, eyes glassy with disbelief, gripping the bent remains of her binder. For the first time since she moved into the neighborhood, she had nothing to say. As for my wind chimes, I rehung them that afternoon. They swayed gently in the breeze, peaceful, soft, innocent. This time, Karen didn't file a single complaint, because the only noise left was the echo of her own storm. Whoa, can you believe Karen's chaos? If you loved watching this wild HOA drama unfold, smash that like button. drop a comment telling us your favorite moment, and make sure you subscribe with notifications on so you never miss another outrageous story. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.